at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, it's too late to try to go contain it. A generation fueled by creation. We live lives on a small screen nation. We control the airwaves, no negotiation. I refuse to think we need saving. Something good will come from creation. And when we think that the world is too anxious, we'll adapt, evolve, survive, and save it. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're causing it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're causing it wrong. Hey, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're causing it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're causing it wrong.
Thought I was already added to the stream. How about that? Look at me fading in and out of the moonlight. Good evening. Welcome to Sovereign Soul Unchained Mind, the backup channel. We're here for a little bit here. I forget how many more days, but whatever. Tonight, our topic, we're going to be talking about alcoholism and the esoteric connection between alcohol and our spirits. And we're going to put up with an open panel. I think that this is going to be a very informative broadcast tonight. What is alcohol? I mean, we look back at through time immemorial, since man first crushed grapes, that see, my dog right now has a drinking problem. It always seems to be when I'm online. So anyway, 1 second. Anyway, trying to get that light over my head to go on so that this looks a little better. Anyway, ever since man first started, he discovered quickly that the fermentation aspect, and in some cases we use fermentation as a method of preserving foods. But also we found that by fermentation through certain sugars, we could get this substance that we know is called alcohol. And what is it? And how is it that some people can just casually drink here and there, have a glass of champagne on Christmas Eve or whatever the case may be? And then there are those of us that we take a drink of it and it's like, whoa, that shit was really good. I want more of that. And it's often kind of perplexed me. I have my theories as to why some are more prone to it than others. And of course, there are physiological reasons for the same thing. But unfortunately, in our society, most people, y'all hearing me okay out there? Is that okay? Give me a thumbs up or some kind of thing in here. Real quick, before I get on with everything, I just wanted to acknowledge everybody that's in the chat tonight. We've got Renee Bernays, Nope Wasn't Me, Kelly Fitzpatrick, Ironton Auditor, Art Kudo. I want to welcome everybody. Nope Wasn't Me is in here. I don't know why this isn't showing, why you're not showing up over here. Anyway, I don't know. Let's see. Oh, there's more. Okay. And Kelly Fitzpatrick. Okay, we mentioned. That's great. I'm glad to see that we got some people here watching. I hope we get a few more. It says we've got 14 over here on the YouTube side, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. If this message can get through to even just one person, that's an accomplishment as far as I'm concerned, because this is a deep subject. It really is. There's thousands and thousands and thousands, millions of people that are affected daily through alcohol and the effects of it. And it's not just the people that drink the alcohol. You have to look at the people that are affected by those that drink the alcohol, whether be it the victim of a drunk driver, whether it be the neglected spouse, abused spouse, neglected and or abused children, the lost jobs and the sorrow and suffering that it causes, the financial wear of the DUI, the embarrassment, the reason that it's all low level shit. It's all low level. And what we find is with your vibration, thank you, Ironton Otter, thank you. What we find is that with alcohol, it does lower your vibration. It lowers it down to a lower frequency. It's the opposite of getting high. And what happens on the lower frequencies? Well, there's lower level entities, if you will, that live beyond our visual light range, that attach themselves to that. It attracts to that. And they feed off of the negative human emotional energy caused by all of the effects, and not the drunkenness, so to speak, the buzz you feel and all that. It's all of the effects that come about as a result of it. And of course, within the alcoholic himself, he carries resentments, sorrow, regrets, and these things gnaw at them. They gnaw at them, and it gives them more reasons to imbibe more spirits and keep that low level vibration and be a source of negative human emotional energy for the lower level beings. We can call them demons, if you will. This is how they feed, and on those that the effect. Some of us they attach to, some of us they don't. And for reasons in physiologically, that we're told that this seems to be a malady that is passed on from a father to the offspring. And although there is some validity in that, I think it also has to do with the psychic perceptiveness of the individual themselves, because I've known a lot of alcoholics in recovery and outside of recovery that are very, very, once you break through, they're very spiritually in tune. And in some cases, it scares a great many of them. This is one of the problems I see in society, is that it is attacked as a physiological problem, or a psychological problem, whereas first and foremost, it is a spiritual problem. Something I've observed in AA. I've been sober for 11 years now. And something I noticed when I go to AA meetings is that everybody's pretty well down for the first step. There are 12 steps in the Alcoholics Anonymous program. And if they're actually put into practice, they're very helpful. They can really do a lot. But the first one, of course, is so obvious, and it says that we came to believe that we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. Well, no shit, Sherlock. If you've ended up at an AA meeting, I would imagine, whether it was there through the courts or through your own volition, but something's fucked up, right? So that's easy enough for someone at an AA meeting, whether a first timer or somebody who's been there for a long time, to admit. However, when we get to that second step, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Well, people just fly off the fucking handle, in a lot of cases. They're like, oh, this is church. And you're trying to get me imbibed into religion. And I can see from their perspective what it is, but it's also it's the demons talking. It's the possession still talking. You see, you're still under that for a number of days and sometimes weeks after a long bender. It takes a while to shake them loose without a little help. And so they'll do their damnedest within that period of time to give you an excuse to imbibe more, to keep you into that level. So you're like, God damn it, that's not going to help me. That's just religion. I might as well just drink. They don't know what they're talking about. Bunch of losers. I used to joke around. I say, I don't go to AA. They're a bunch of damn quitters. Ha ha. So, you look at, I see that aspect of it. And even to the point where sometimes where they say, you have to believe in a higher power. You have to believe that, there's something else, that some higher power, like your higher consciousness, if you wish, that can restore you to your primary self without the possession. And they don't see it like that. And I've seen suggestions like, well, as long as a doorknob can be your higher power or something, as long as you have something. I was like, holy shit. Okay, whatever. Now, I didn't really get this until after I had what you would call an epiphany, through the use of psilocybin mushrooms. And it left me with not only knowledge that was, I don't know, transferred to me through the Akashic record that I later looked into and found out, oh, wow, yeah, that's right. But also with a gift that gives me a natural revulsion to the taste or smell of alcohol. I can't even smell it. It's somebody be putting on some that hand sanitizer, and I'm like, who's the drunk around here? Who's the drunk? Oh God, and it's, I mean, that's my thoughts. I don't say that, but that smell, whereas before I could recall that something like that would go, shot of vodka could be all right about now. I mean, that's where the thinking, that's how far off it's gone from one to the other. Hello, ZXL Master. Thank you for showing up. Wake Up American Resist. See, we got Nope Wasn't Me. Sorry to keep breaking off like that. Like I got ADD or something, right? So, when it comes down to the spirituality aspect of it, the alcoholic has a hard time. It really does. And of course, they start the AA meetings. You have to be spiritually prepared, but people don't understand that. They just go in and everybody, of course, they say this prayer, the Lord's Prayer, before they start their meeting. And that's all well and good. But if you're not really understanding where prayer comes from and how it works, that the feeling is the prayer, then you're not preparing yourself spiritually to go commune with a group of people who are also demonically possessed. I mean, it's what ends up happening is you just start trading demons back and forth. It's like baseball cards. And unfortunately, I believe that's the reason a lot of people struggle, and they don't really attack the spiritual aspect of it. An interesting thing with alcoholism is that it seems that these entities will use up their farm, like slash and burn. Most alcoholics don't die as a result of the alcohol itself. Those are survivors. The Skid Row bum sitting in the alley with a brown bag or drinking the Sterno, those are survivors. Okay, those are survivors. Most alcoholics die from, stepping in front of a bus, falling off of a subway platform, a number of different ways, getting mouthy and belligerent and getting his ass killed by somebody, whatever the case may be. Very rarely the alcoholic actually gets to that point where they're the survivor, and that's bad enough. So that's usually the iconic image that's placed into people's heads regarding an alcoholic. It's the the bum sitting in the alley with the brown bag and half passed out up against the wall. And like I say, those are the survivors. If they don't succumb to death that way, many times they often cancel themselves. And the interesting thing about that is that they never find a half empty bottle of alcohol. It's always completely gone. And then, of course, these dark entities, they get to feed off of the misery and all the negative emotion that surrounds such an event of someone canceling themselves. God forbid, if you're thinking about something like that, even if you're Canadian, call somebody for some help, please. But oftentimes, of course, we know the emotion and everything that goes along with that, depending on what the family dynamic is, and they feed off of that as well. The grief, the suffering, the mourning of the spouse and the children, if there's such a thing. And they move on to another victim, another willing victim. And they usually find them at high school parties and college frat parties, things like that. Young people that aren't thinking, they don't want to, they're just out to have a good time. And of course, our society promotes this socially debilitating drug to a point of taxation, to the point where, as long as they're making money from it, be damned the victims. It almost looks like to me, while condemning something that's very peaceful like marijuana. And I just don't understand why they would promote such a socially debilitating drug. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the, let me see, I got to get this up here first. Now, what happened? Top chat, live chat. There we go. Okay, so we're good to go there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a, what's it say? Hi, Arrington Otter, last video, auditing Britain. Cool. There's a ZXL master. This guy, he's a promotion king. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the link in the chat, and I'll pin it up to the top. So if anybody wants to come on and discuss, perhaps you've had your own experience with alcoholism. I don't know if you've heard my story before, but I've, in my career of drinking, I had racked up a total, oh, I have to do it over here, don't I? On this computer. There we go. Good to go. All right. So yeah, I had racked up 6 DUIs in that period of time, which was, probably going back into my teens, but I didn't get my first DUI till I was 20. Yeah, I was 20. And I wrecked a car, almost killed myself and 2 other people. It was a 1-car accident, but I took out a lot of stuff. All I remember was we were cruising down a road, going really fast, drinking Wild Turkey, and road turned. I didn't. And I went through a whole bunch of shit. A ditch, a privacy fence, a flower box made out of railroad ties, 2 pine trees, and part of a garage. I can remember I was listening to Can't Drive 55 by Sammy Hagar. Now I can. So that was pretty bad, but that still didn't teach me. What happens is the ego gets you, the pride. How can an inanimate object, an inanimate thing, you don't have any control over that? Of course you do. I just won't drink and drive, or I just won't drink as much, or you resign yourself to all these control measures, when in reality this thing actually has control over you. So through that period of time, yeah, I've had a lot of problems, lost jobs, lost friends. And thing that happens when with alcohol too is that you find yourself digressing down, or devolving down, but you keeping your social surroundings slightly seedier than yourself, So the places you might go to get wet, you go there, and pretty soon you're too low class for that place. You're too much. You drink too much for that bar, so you got to go to the bar where there's people that drink more than you, and you keep doing that until pretty soon you find yourself down at Jack's Bar, down on Wide Track, down by the old Fisher Body Plant, where the police just hang out there waiting to pick up bodies and arrest people. My son Ryan, if he's listening, he's heard of Jack's Bar. I'm sure he has. They're in Pontiac. Anybody that's ever been to Pontiac, Michigan, oh my God, what a dive. But that happens, and you start bringing your circle of friends down. Now, another trap that comes in is that the alcoholic will often go. They start going to AA. Everything's going good. Their life starts picking up. They're not having the negative shit in their life that normally happens and everything. And they go, okay, cool. I really got a handle on it, but it still gnaws at you, man. It'll still gnaw at you and go, okay, well, you can just have one drink because you already know that you can't have more than that. And it'll trick you. And you come in and you'll do it. You'll fucking do it. And then the next thing you know, you go, okay, well, that worked out. See, I had control. And I only had that one drink, So what's it going to hurt if I have another? Mark my words, it'll go that way every fucking time. Every time, So as Nope wasn't me, says every job I lost, every time I was arrested was because I was drinking. Yes, absolutely. I relate to that. Nope. Either directly or indirectly, whether or not it's because you were late because you were drinking the night before, or whether or not it's because it could be something as simple as because how are we the next morning? Nope, wasn't me. We're pretty surly, aren't we? And the boss kind of gets after us about something. And we tell him, "Oh, go fuck yourself." And he goes, "Go pack your tools and get the fuck out of here." I've had that happen. I'm not a stranger, so you're in good company. Oh, let's see. So when I was well, I was a singer with bands, but also hosting karaoke shows, always in bars. It's always bothered me that people who drink get mad at us who don't. They really do. They really do. There's a lot of pressure in it. Reminds me of another certain thing that happened just recently. There was a lot of people trying to coerce other people to do something they didn't want to do. Just saying. So what else we got going on here? I stay loaded, Articudo says. Well, if I'm not telling people don't drink, I'm not a teetotaler. And if you're a person that drinks alcohol and you process it and you don't have the problems and shit like that, hey, go for it. And even if you do have the problems and you want to keep having them, that's fine too. I think that once to people, yeah, Ironton says I switched to coffee. Art's ticket. Art. He said I don't drink. I know what you're talking about, Art. He's the only older fucking pothead than me in this entire fucking YouTube right now. Art is the high on God of all time. But yeah, I switched to coffee too, Ironton. There's an interesting thing that happens physiologically too. Your DNA strand it's a coil. And they've shown that you actually transmit and receive on a frequency that's unique to yourself, but on the bandwidth with others. If you can imagine, like in your car radio, for instance, on the 94 band, you could go to 94.6 and it's jazz. And then you go to 94.8 and it's rock and roll. And you go to 94.3 and it's oldies, right? They're all on the 94 bandwidth, but they're within their own little frequency on that bandwidth. And that's kind of that's kind of how we are. Now, signals for low frequency signals in transmission, you need a short antenna. For high frequency, you need a tall or long antenna. Now, when you drink alcohol, it actually causes your DNA coil to tighten, which shortens the coil. A double helix coil antenna, if any of you know things about radios, I was Signal Corps in the Army. A double helix coil antenna is really powerful because you're fitting a lot of antenna into a short little bit right there, okay? So when you elongate that, you can pick up the high frequencies and transmit on the high frequencies. When you compress it, it's only good to transmit low frequency waves. Well, like I said, when your DNA constricts like that as a result of alcohol, you're basically tuning your radio to lower frequencies. And so you shall receive lower frequencies. Now, what also resides in the lower frequency? On the emotional wave, the lower frequencies are fear, anger, well, basically all the derivatives of fear, which are anger, anxiety, rage, you name it. These are all different ways of expressing fear. And that's where that's at down there on that level right there. Whereas when you cause it to relax, now an interesting thing they found too, from some studies I've read, is that when you smoke marijuana, or you resonate in a vibration of happiness or love, okay, your DNA actually relaxes and elongates. That coil elongates, making you susceptible to the higher vibrations, the higher frequencies. And that's what it's all about right there. So when you read that, I guess that's maybe why they call it getting high. But when you resonate on there's Wake Up American Resist. He says, I switched to whiskey. There you go. You know, a lot of times that's another remedy that alcoholics will try to take. You know, they'll go, oh, well, I stopped drinking brown liquor. What? Or I only drink beer. You know, and it's not the point. It doesn't matter what you drink. If you get to a level of intoxication where you're starting to have adverse and negative consequences, not good. But to each their own. To each their own. Now, within these alcoholic families, there's a dynamic that occurs there, because a lot of times an alcoholic will find themselves, this is what cracks me up. A woman will go out to a bar and pick up a man. Or a man will go out to a bar and pick up a woman. And then after a while, they're going together and they're having fun. They go out to the bars together and they have a good time and they get married. And this thing progresses. It progresses. And then pretty soon, it's like, man, I got to get rid of them, man. They're a drunk. So I'm divorcing them. They're a drunk. So after they're all divorced and everything, guess where they go? They go right back out to the bar looking for another girl or another guy. And it's like, well, you know, what the fuck did you think you were going to get there? I mean, if you go fishing in a toilet, you're going to get a turd, right? I mean, it's just, that's all there is to it. I'm not saying that all people in the bar are toilets or anything like that. I'm just saying that it becomes a repeating pattern. So, and also a lot of times an alcoholic will find the enabler, the person that overlooks them, that will make excuses for him, you know. A lot of times a wife, when their husband's drinking starts getting out of control, they start making excuses for their behavior. They start covering for them. They start making up reasons, calling in to work for them, saying, oh, he's sick. He's got, you know, the whiskey blues again, you know, or saying it's the flu or some other kind of shit like that. And that's that doesn't help. That doesn't help, because the only time that somebody ever will realize that they've actually got a problem is when they hit bottom. Now, what is that? Different places for different people. You know, some people have a really low bottom. Some people have a fucking high bottom. You know, it just all depends on how much will you put up with. And one of the things that I hear is, well, I'm not that bad yet. Well, how bad do you got to get? You know, that's usually my first question, is how bad do you have to be before, you know, I'm not, when is the yet point? Where's the line, you know? And sometimes that'll make them stop and think, oh, look, we got Burn the Corporate Fiction is in here tonight. I want everybody to make sure and go over. Let me see if I've got his tab opened up anywhere. I can put his link down here in the chat. You know what I also got to do? I'll let him put his fucking link in the chat. How's that go? Okay, I have to do that over here. I'm confused. I'm having digital schizophrenia right now because I'm open under 2 accounts. So there we go. You have been bestowed the wrench, burn the corporate fiction, with all lands, patents, and titles. So be it. There we go. Oh Lord, you are so very, very large, so very big. Gosh, we're all impressed down here. So what do y'all think so far? Questions, comments? Anybody wanting to just tell me to go F myself? Whatever. So the panel's open. I have a link up in the pinned in the top of the description. Anybody that would like to, feel free to come on. It'd be great. Or look at Renee's even saying, it's one of your fans already, Ryan. Look at there. Why go to the junkyard for a used car? Oh, art. Oh, art that is so off color. But yeah, one of the things too that you start seeing happening is like I had this friend around here, and even though I didn't realize that the same thing was happening to me, he eventually died. And that there was a result of illness due to he just wouldn't stop drinking. He was a survivor. And this guy, he was a great guy, but he was so bad. I worked with him on a construction crew, and he lived right around here. And I worked with him on a construction crew. And this guy, by noon, would have the shakes so bad. He would have the shakes so bad that he could cut a piece of plywood without even hitting the trigger on the skill saw. I mean, of course, I'm exaggerating, but that's how bad his tremors go. We'd go to lunch. He'd go get himself a couple of 40 ounces. Lunchtime's over. This guy's right back doing his thing, right? But he got to a point where his complexion was literally green, and he was so skinny that he looked like a ghoul. He literally looked like a ghoul. And then while I was out in California, I heard that he died. Some kind of shit with his liver gave out or something. I don't know. But he just never would find his bottom. He never hit bottom because he had a prop up. Because like how many jobs would they go, oh, okay, let's get some beer into this guy so that he can continue to work the rest of the day. Not many places at all.
Depends on how good he is.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, for what he did, he was pretty good, and his brother worked with him, and he and his brother both lived with his mom in a house, and then she died, and his brother and him inherited the house. So it was already paid for. There was no, I'm going to lose the house type shit. I'm going to lose my life or anything if I did get fired. So it was like, there was no bottom, I mean, it was cushioned. It was cushioned. There's some people, they go out there and like one DUI, they're successful one day, and the next day, one DUI completely fucks their entire life.
I was just having a discussion about that, actually. That's exactly, one DUI is going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars, and not to mention the drug testing and the breathalyzer. So now if you have a job, your job don't give a fuck the drug testing place don't give a fuck if you have a job. They're not about to, I got to work tomorrow. We don't give a fuck. You better be here to piss in this cup and do a breathalyzer.
Yeah.
DUI will annihilate your life. Now, I've never personally went through DUI probation or anything like that, but I've known people who have. Christy had to do it, and I had to take her to drug tests and all that stuff, and it's like, whew, man, they make it impossible to complete. That's what they do. But
dude, I would love to have the money that my 6 DUIs have cost me.
Yep. Yeah, I bet.
I mean, for real. Look at Art Kudo says $10,000 to $12,000 in California.
Dude,
and and that's not enough to stop, because here's the thing, man. Although I've gotten 6 DUIs, how many times do you think I've driven drunk? Those are just the fucking times I got caught.
Yeah.
I can remember driving home several nights where I had to close one eye so there was only one line in the road.
Damn.
But
I
you
was,
know what was on my mind? Here's the ego shit. Here's where the ego shit is. And you can ask it like you'd say to a drunk, do you think you're all right to drive? And they'll say, I'll be okay. And I usually respond with, I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about every other motherfucker that's out on the road right now.
right,
You see? And that
right.
was my thing. My whole concern was, I hope I can get home safe
Oh,
and not get caught. It was all about me, not once thinking that I could easily kill somebody. Never once did that cross through my mind.
well, so with DUIs, in my opinion, it's a pre-crime. Okay,
Yes.
so in its inception, or the concept of it is like Minority Report. They're not arresting you for hurting somebody. They're arresting you for the potentiality of hurting somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they treat it as if you are causing injury, or you're gonna, but I will say this, it sucks to say, I'm not saying that I agree with it's obviously unconstitutional, it's a pre-crime, but people shouldn't be out there driving drunk, and it's probably saved more lives in more ways than you would think. You know what I mean? Think about it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's one of those things where you go with, if you want to be free, there's, you got to take responsibility for yourself. That includes, accepting the fact that there might be idiots out there driving drunk. But I had this thought occur to me, right? A good analogy for alcohol. Alcohol is drop D tuning.
Yes.
That's what
If you
alcohol is.
notice, alcohol and heroin are very
Similar.
closely related. And word is that if you're drunk, your drunk blues are dropped down D tuned. Okay. And the same thing, if you listen to a lot of your heroin inspired music, like a lot of Alice in Chains and shit, although I love their music, right? But it's drop D tuning. And I've paid attention to a lot of these bands that do that drop D tuning. It's like, oh, that guy died from heroin.
But
Oh, that guy died from drinking and he puked and choked on it and shit. And
that's
I'm like,
literally what
oh,
it does to you. Is a drop D tunes
yep.
your frequency. So, I
That's
believe,
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Alcohol makes you more. It lowers your vibrational frequency, because everything in it, you and I both know, but maybe the audience doesn't. Everything in existence is an electromagnetic vibrational frequency. That's all it is. And the variation of wavelengths, the variation of frequency, is what causes the illusion of separation. So essentially, like, if all motion were to cease, if there was to be no motion but complete stillness and all matter, everything would be one. It would
Mm-hmm.
be all, right? So, not to get too deep into that, when you're in a positive mood, you're happy, and you're loving, and you're in a state of gratitude, you're in a high vibrational frequency, and you draw that stuff into your life. You draw more positive experiences into your life, and you better handle negative experiences. But now, when you drink alcohol, this shit, not only it's that drop D tuning, it brings your vibrational frequency down. And I personally believe that there are things in this world that feed off of suffering and negativity. So, like the Gnostics, they call them archons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like shadow things type deal, like darkness, right? There's things that want to, and that might sound crazy to people, but I've read stories. I've had my own personal experiences. I'm not, going to share at this point in time, but also I've read stories of, like, people, like there's this one guy, he claimed to astral, to have an out of body experience, and who knows, what that's all about. It could be a massive hallucination. I personally believe that that's a thing, but he said that while he was having his OBE, he went over a bar, and while he was over the bar, he seen a bunch of these black shadows, uh, creatures circling the bar, right? Like vultures. And he looked down, he could see through the roof of the bar, right? Like perfectly clear. And he seen down there was a guy took a shot of liquor. And as soon as he took a shot of liquor, his spirit was ejected. And it was still tethered by the silver cord, but his spirit was ejected. And one of those black things swooped down into his body and started wreaking havoc in the bar, right? And the dude that was having the OBE realized that guy just blacked out. His body became so polluted with that
Yeah.
low vibrational frequency that his spirit it could literally not cohabitate. It could not with that dark vibrational frequency, and was ejected.
Right.
So, and that story, who knows? It could be a complete fantasy, hallucination, whatever, but it resonates with me as if it isn't, because,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It just resonated
Yeah.
with me because I know from my own personal experiences with alcohol, and then seeing other people, having that like demonic sort of experience.
That's interesting because I was Renee Bernays, who's in the chat. She was mentioning earlier today about the shadow people,
Okay.
and I have seen these shadow beings pass me in a hallway at nighttime where there's no light. I mean, there's just like very little light, and here's this like dark figure that seems like solid black past me like that. And I'm like, what the hell? Like I was get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I still have them. I still see them. They're waiting. They're waiting. They want me to fuck up. And I think there's some validity to what you're talking about right there, man. That makes absolute sense because as one who has experienced the blackout, that makes absolute sense that I would be absolutely not conscious of the actions that were taking place. Although I hear the stories of what did take place the next day.
Right.
And
It's
you're like, I don't remember a fucking bit of that. It's because you're detached completely. That makes absolute sense. It's like, bong, there's another light went on.
right.
Holy
And
shit. I knew this was going to be a good show, man.
that's why it always resonated with me well. And it's like that lower nature, that low vibrational frequency, and those things, like whatever it is in this world, that they're the spirits of non-being, just that negative polarity manifest,
Right.
in the aether. And they yeah, man, it's that that's why I say alcohol is one of the worst. That's why I put in the comments, it's one of the most uh horrible addictions out there, and what makes it even worse than say like heroin or meth is the prevalence and availability of it. It's everywhere. They're
Mhm.
in your face. You can go into any store. I know down in Virginia they got the ABC, which makes it a little bit more of a pain in the ass for guys to go get liquor and stuff, but not really that much.
Not really. They're about as convenient now. I mean, listen, they stayed open when everything else was shut down. They made sure they had the damn liquor store open. And they've got a convenient location near you. I guarantee it, man. I got a friend of mine, he comes over all the time. I like him. But man, I have to sit way far away from him because he's always got that shit on his breath. And you know how a drunk smells?
Yes.
And then he'll start telling me about something, and it just takes forever and ever for him to tell me. And I'm sitting there going, "Oh my fucking God, would you get on with it?" And
Right.
but I'm compassionate enough to go, that I don't really get irritated with him or anything like that because I go, yeah, I remember. Thanks for giving me that reflection of my past.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. Thank you for giving me that reflection of the past, which is interesting. I just found my video by Greg Braden on the 7 mirrors of the Essene. I'll put it up on my what the fuck is that, Dropbox, and send you a link so you can download it. It's really a good video. It's the 7 mirrors of the Essene is a really great concept, man. And I've also heard that the biblical Joseph and Mary were both members of the
That's
Essene, who
interesting.
were mystics.
I'll have to look into it.
This ties in with the spiritual conception, it's quite a thing, but he doesn't go into that. But the 7 mirrors of the Essene, basically, for anybody out there who doesn't know what that is, it's basically we see our own reflection in others, and we either admire or detest the reflections that we see. We detest some reflections because we know that we have the capacity within us, and we make sure to keep that under wraps. but it still reminds us that we have the capacity. And then we also see those that we admire, that we will strive to be like. And then there are those that are just like us in another reflection. I think maybe I'll do a show on that one night. It's an interesting concept.
That's a Buddhist principle. That's why I say, like, somebody asked me, like, or as we talk about the Bible, they say they never read it. I say, what you should read if you're going to read the Bible, and you don't have much time, or you're not going to read much or whatever, just read the Gospels. And the reason being, and I said most specifically, just the things Jesus taught.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just the words out of his mouth. Read those and really reflect on those, because they're very similar to what Buddha taught. And that principle that you just spoke of is a basic fundamental psychological principle, is that nobody makes you angry. Nobody makes you sad. You make you sad.
That's right.
Because so the Buddha in Buddhism, the Buddha says that you see your consciousness in a flower. And I mean, that like is super confusing initially. You know what I mean? You see your consciousness in a flower, but you do. And what it is basically a good way to demonstrate the mind mirror effect, as you just put it, is a Rorschach test.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a Rorschach test is. And now what happens to your mind in a Rorschach test is the same thing that happens to your mind when you look at anything. Mm-hmm. Everything that you look at, you're coloring with your biases. Well, the other night when we were talking, I said the personality is just an aggregate of habits and beliefs based on your experiences, because all you are is a point of infinite possibility and infinite awareness.
A point of attention.
Yeah, you're just a point of attention collecting an aggregate of experience. That's it. That's all you are from the point you're born till you die. Like in the most simplest sense, you're just a point of awareness, a little, having collecting an aggregation of experience. And your personality is just a collection of habits and beliefs based on those experiences. So what is the basic fundamental of the mind? Everybody wants more pleasure and they want to avoid pain. Those are your basic functions. Everything that you do and decide to do, for the most part, right, is either to bring yourself pleasure or to spare yourself pain. Even like, say, helping others. You help others because it makes you feel good. Because you're a good person, it makes you feel good. That's where you derive pleasure, and you're doing more of what makes you feel good, right? Now, for the most part, that's what drives us. And now, because that's the primary place that you're coming from most of the time, all of your habits are based on what brings you pleasure and what spares you pain. And you confuse that. People confuse that. I'm not saying you specifically, but people confuse that with that being themselves. They identify with this whole persona that they've developed as a result of an aggregate of experiences. It's just a bunch of beliefs like, oh, I like this, I don't like that. I believe this is this way because of this. And I believe that you shouldn't do this and that you should do that. And that's what you're saying. That's me. That's not you. Those are habits and beliefs. You know what I'm saying? What you are is a point of awareness. You're the observer in the seat of consciousness. And like I said the other night, if you were your thoughts and your beliefs and your habits, then when you have a thought in your mind, what is it that hears the thought? When you think, you can hear your thought, right? Like if you have a song in your head, you can hear the song in your head, right? Well, what is it that hears the song? What is it that hears the words in your mind? That's what you are. The rest of it is just dust, it's smoke and mirrors. That's it.
It is, absolutely, man. It's like, what you were talking about, like the things that the Nazarene spoke of, the things that Buddha spoke of. These are all things that if people were to embrace them, we could have a society without all these little bullshit edicts and shit, And it's like I said before, in order to not have to have a ruler, you need to embody what you would want a ruler to be.
Well, see,
right?
That's exactly. It's internal monarchy leads to external anarchy because everybody can govern themselves.
Absolutely.
internal anarchy leads to external monarchy, and people needing somebody to lord over them because they can't control themselves. There's only two modes of being, two real, like, so when we break down duality and how opposites are only an illusion, right?
Mhm.
That thought is so powerful, that understanding is so powerful, because then you realize that there are no true opposites. They're just two extreme degrees of these eternal archetypal principles. And when you can identify those principles, you can learn to master yourself and understanding. So with opposites, you learn that, there are no real opposites. Okay. So let's take, what would God be, or like the all, like what would that primordial state, when a baby comes out, the baby's filled with love, right? Because that's
Mhm.
what we ultimately are. So love is the ultimate pole of the positive state of being, like real, true, just love and joy, right? So what is the opposite of love?
Fear.
It is fear, 100%. Now, all negative emotion stems from fear, right? So this is how you can tell if you truly love something. If you can, when they say, if you can let it go, because that's why the Buddha said, like, the only way to liberation is through the elimination of attachment. Because if you love something, but it leaves, and then you're mad that it leaves, or you're afraid of it leaving, you don't really love it. You have some sort of selfish, it doesn't mean you don't want that thing to stay, or that person to stay, but it means you have some sort of selfish attachment to that love. You know what I mean? So you either, and you fear losing it because you're incomplete inside of yourself somewhere. And so you need that validation from outside of yourself to feel complete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
that's one of the reasons why there's so many people out there. I mean, we're lacking that. That's why there's so many people out there right now, look at me, look at me. Instagram is made up from look at me, validate me, validate me, validate me. We're wanting that external validation constantly from whatever source we can get it from. And unfortunately, the little scrying mirrors and shit like that make it not only easy but fun for us to get the validation of others. And it's so important to people that I have, people that they'll disagree with me because of my views on the cosmology of the universe, and so vehemently so that they'll go to extreme measures to try to get me shut up, when it's real fucking simple. Hit the little red X,
right?
And they think that it's that their own self-importance guides them to a point where they think that their actions alone are going to be that which makes the change. We see that with Chile de Castro. He's never about, really, he wants to be the big duck in the puddle to make the change. He doesn't want to come together with everybody and say, hey, here's the mindset we got to have. If you want this shit to work, here's the mindset you've got to have, Real quick, I want to hit Renee's comment down here, because this guy, if you've never listened or watched anything about Jerry Marzinski, very interesting. He started studying schizophrenics in the prison system and in mental institutions and shit. And what he found out, that it is more akin, like what we're talking about, that it is actually more a demonic possessions rather than multiple personality. And there's a lot of evidence to support that. It's this guy, one of his quotes is, where do thoughts come from? And I'm of the belief myself that thoughts come from a higher plane. I don't believe they're generated in your mind at all. I believe that you download your thoughts from your higher self.
It's a whole other dimension of existence, is where you're actually operating in a higher dimension. And when you're thinking, right? Because
it's like, where people always go, where do you think you go when you die? And my answer is, you don't go anywhere. You're not really here.
Well, people
you're just using this thing. That's all.
That right there is an example of how we are multidimensional beings, and we're actually existing in more dimensions than we're consciously aware of. But there's the two dimensions that you can identify right away, is the external world in your internal imagination. Those are two different dimensions, and you interact in the external world, in the three-dimensional world, but you always retreat back into your own dimension. Right?
Listen, I'm fully aware of that outer dimension and my ability to leave, to actually stretch the bonds of the tether to this physical incarnation. It scared the shit out of me the first time it happened. I was meditating. I was listening to some tones at 432 hertz and like some really cool music, meditating. And I was listening to it on a computer. Had headphones on, and I closed my eyes and I was sitting there meditating. And what would happen in my mind was initially would be like there would be like a little vista open up in my mind. It would kind of open like that, and I would see a realistic scene through it. And then as soon as I'd start to get kind of excited about it, it would go away. And I had to keep going. All right, so when this happens, I just need to relax and let it happen. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. So after a few tries, the vista opened up, right? And it was really cool. I just let it happen. And it came in like, it was realistic view. It was so cool. And it was somebody that appeared to me to be laying down, sleeping, illuminated by either a TV or a computer screen or that kind of light. And I was like, oh, wonder what this is. And I looked a little closer and it was me. I was outside of me, but it wasn't me laying down because I was sitting up. I was sideways. And then all of a sudden it excited me so much that I actually felt myself clunk back into my body. I mean, and I opened my eyes. That was fucking Bella. That was boss. And so I started playing with it. And it's really crazy because you start getting this thought about, what if I get away too far and can't come back? What if I get lost and can't get back? But I've got to realize that tether is always there. That tether is always there.
From the reading on into as different, you know, I've been studying like esoterics for a long time now, and some of the stuff I've read is that you've got to be careful. So that they call that astral. So that's where you operate. Theoretically, when you leave your body, you're operating in the astral realm. But that astral realm is called in occultism and esotericism, it's called the realm of deception, the realm of illusion, and that it's actually quite dangerous.
Yeah, there's tricksters.
And yeah, that's pretty interesting.
But we're kind of getting off in a different tangent. We're trying to stay over on the alcoholism. And
I was going to bring it back though, that when meditating in the 2 points of being, there's actually only one way to escape. It's like, this is how you escape everything, because there's an ancient occult axiom that says, or maxim, if you will, that says, if that which you are seeking you cannot find within, you will never find without. Right. So you have to find it within yourself. Well, what are you looking for ultimately? When we get to the root, to the extreme positive end of the pole, what is it? And beyond love, it is actually faith. It's faith in a divine plan, that everything happens for a reason. When you start looking for God, looking for the spirit, you know what I mean? The creator, it literally starts interacting with you and speaking with you through signs and numbers and stuff like that, especially specifically numbers. And I'm sure you know this and you've had experience with it, I'm sure.
Oh God, I get the 1111 all the time. Hey, real quick, let me give a shout out. I have a few more people that have come into the chat here tonight. Austin Murphy has arrived. You're late. You're getting a bad mark on your chart, Austin. Devos Nation is here with us again. Maddie B, Agent of Chaos, and Queen B. Always good to see you, sweetheart. Maddie B, Agent of Chaos. I like that. I like that name. It's an Agent of Chaos. What's that put you in mind of? What does an Agent of Chaos put you in mind of, Ryan?
Yeah.
Oh, and Michael H. He's here too.
I mean, In which sense? In a like real world sense, it'd be like the ones who initiate the problem part of the Hegelian dialectic. You know what I mean? Dialectic.
I look at chaos as being, this is my best way of describing it, anything that can go wrong, going wrong, and at the worst possible moment. That's chaos.
I see. Now that's the very thing that I don't. It's actually one of the things that helped me.
That's right. Hold on a second. That's right. It's from Get Smart. I should have realized that. That's from my day. There was a TV show called Get Smart, long before the movie.
Do you believe in chaos, or do you divine order?
No, I think everything goes within divine order. Everything happens for a purpose. Yes, and I think there's validity to the avo de chao.
Well, it's order out of chaos, but that chaos, orchestrated chaos.
Well, it's a never-ending rebirth and death. It's rebirth and death. It's rebirth and death.
Once you look at it and analyze it, you can always recognize a pattern. Patterns underlie all the programming.
Yeah.
There's always patterns.
Well, that's another thing too, is this programming that we have too. And one of the things too that I've noticed, let me tell you something about in an alcoholic family, how this goes. I didn't know that it was considered, you shouldn't be drinking in the morning. I didn't think that was a thing. I thought, because I saw it all the time. I saw that all the time in my house. That was absolutely fucking normal. So the first time I took a jug of whiskey and opened it first thing out of the bed and took a drink out of it, people are looking at me, and I was in the barracks in Germany, and they're looking at me like, what the fuck, man? It's only like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, yeah, so. And then I started finding out, it's also socially unacceptable, as well as, that might show you got a problem, but it never showed me anything. I was a tough motherfucker. That's what it showed me. See,
right.
I can outdrink you. I can outdrink you. This is my superpower. I can outdrink you. No, you can't. Yes, I can. Let's do it. I'm down for the challenge. I don't care if I lose. Fuck, I'm an alcoholic,
Yes.
So, that's the thing. And you never really learn. And it's hard for people a lot of times to accept that a mere substance has them by the balls,
Everybody falls for the whole, that's other people. That's not me. I can quit anytime I want. I don't want to quit. I do not want to quit. I like drinking. That's why I drink. But,
and when they're speaking under the influence of the demonic possession, they're absolutely telling the truth.
The amazing thing about that, so you can quit drinking for a long time, and if you start drinking again, right?
Here's Bean is in here too.
You're gonna go right back to your same level of alcoholism within just a couple days, few days. If you drink, say you quit drinking for a year and then you start drinking again, within just a couple days, you'll be right back to where you left off a year ago, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but if you quit drinking and then you just take, say one night you have 3 beers, it literally tunes you in for the next week. You know what I mean? That's how it keeps you. It only takes a little bit to tune you back, to drop you back down, to drop deep. That's it. Especially, and the more you've drank throughout your life, if you've had an alcohol problem, it becomes that much easier to tune you in off of
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Listen, if you keep on, I'll tell you, it racks hell on your liver. You don't realize. I remember one time I was to a point I could drink a couple of I could drink a whole fifth 100 proof vodka and still be walking around talking and shit, no problem, right? So I had a really high tolerance, and then one day I got a little half pint of 80 proof pop-off vodka, and I got the drunkest I ever got in my fucking life on that shit, on that one little half pint. And it was because my liver just failed. It just fucking, all that alcohol went boom, didn't get processed at all. And that's what had happened. You'd think that would teach somebody to stop, right?
Right.
No, I just took a break for a little bit until my liver got a little bit better, and then right back into the same old fucking thing. And listen, every time doing it too, knowing you was fucking up. but pushing that down deep, pushing that down away deep, knowing full well you're fucking up. It's going to end bad. It's going to end bad. You know you're going to get in trouble. You know you're going to do some shit to get your ass in trouble. You shouldn't be doing this. And this is in the back of your head the whole time you're on your way to go get it.
It's
at the store.
It's such a necessary part of the bread and circus.
Oh my God, yes, it's part of the control system. What was that meme you sent me? I'm going to bring that up.
Juvenile, yeah, that Juvenile quote. That's give them bread and give the people bread and circus.
Yeah.
I figured so applicable to discussing alcohol because that's one of the primary purposes of pushing it on the public so hard. I know people have historically liked to drink, right? But the availability of it, and the amount, in the early 20th century when they're making all their major changes in the world, world wars, in the central banking system and all that good stuff, right? Well, on top of that, the reason they were pushing alcohol so hard on the country literally had a detrimental. They declared, what do they call that? It was like a health crisis.
Like a health crisis. Yeah, I've heard that. What year was this again?
It was just, I don't remember the exact years. It was in the earliest 20th century, though, around the time of the wars. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, it was that, and I guess there was a real bad dental problem as well. But yeah, give them bread and circuses and they'll never revolt. That's what we were saying the other night when people can list, the entire starting lineup of their favorite football team, right? And
right. They're sitting there looking. They're all worried about. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. And you tell them, hey, this is happening, that's happening. No, did you see what happened with the Bills?
No, yeah. Here's a perfect example. Do you know what the Federal Reserve is? Who the fuck cares? It's the government's bank. Who gives a fuck? But did you see the game? Like, dude, what the fuck, man? Really?
I know.
It's so bad.
Anyway, this is the guy who is credited with that quote. Am I correct in that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So the phrase originates from Roman poet Juvenal, who stated that the Roman government used this method to win votes by popularity. And what is it? Bread and circus refers to the strategy of giving the citizens what they want to distract citizens from what is going on in the government and economy. And, we know that they do that. We knew that.
And what does that more importantly tell us? That they've been doing it for a long time, that the same people are still playing out of the same playbook, and they've been doing it for a long, long time.
Do you remember the scene in Life of Brian where they're having that meeting in that guy's house and they're like, what have the Romans ever done for us? And that guy stands up in the back and says, the aqueduct. And it's like, oh yeah, the aqueduct. And they list through some other stuff, but then he says, he says, okay, besides sanitation and lower crime rates, what have the Romans ever done for us? And then the guy says, wine? And he goes, oh yeah, and everybody's all glad about that. And I think that personifies that whole thing because the alcohol, right? The use of that, and we look how long did the British control using opium, and I would dare say the Anglo-American Empire still does.
What is Britain? Britain is just Roman. It's Roman. Yeah. It's British. It's still Rome because all Rome did was migrate westward. That's it.
And the Romans called it what? Britannia.
That's right. Yeah. There's three major heads to this hydra, and they're all sovereign city-states. The three major sovereign city-states are what? Washington, D.C., which is the District of Columbia, which Columbia is a Roman goddess. What is all the architecture in the capital? Roman, right? What is the style of law that we're under? It's Roman civil code. It's Roman civil code is what it is. That's what that maritime law shit is. Then what's the other sovereign city-states? The Crown District of London, the Financial District, Crown District of London. And then Vatican City.
Yep.
All those.
So it's the military, commercial, and spiritual.
Yeah, and religious. It's the three-headed hydra. You know what I mean? So
And they know the key to it is the Vatican. That's why there's a key, that keyhole shape when you look at it.
And on top, well, everything is, when you start actually looking into the Bar Association, goes to the church, goes back to the church. The crown is granted from the Pope, by the Pope. When you really start looking into, they've even got like their code terms for these different laws, and I'll go through. I'm going through all my information right now and kind of organizing it. But basically, there's a VAT tax. VAT as in like Vatican, but it's not, it's called value added tax, but the VAT is instantly, they use these acronyms on purpose to imply things. But yeah, that's the three main. Oh, and the other thing Rome did, Rome basically just ripped everything off Greece anyways. And see, here's the thing, I think Greece, I often wonder, there's a lot of similarities between the stories of Atlantis and the Atlanteans and the myths of ancient Greece. You know what I mean? So,
something I'd heard about with these, when we really get into this, is it's like, even when you, with alcohol, it goes even into the roots of World War, I want to say 1, maybe 2. But the idea of rum is, and being able to get it from the cane sugar from like Puerto Rico and the Bahamas and those areas. That was where they was getting that, and there was a shortage of that because you make rum from molasses. They make rum from molasses. Where'd you go, Ryan? You left us. I don't know what happened. Did I piss him off? Did I upset him? I don't know what happened. He'll be back. But there again, with that same outfit, and who was controlling that, who went in there and started with that was right off the bat. It was the British. And that's one of the things that was, they used the opium, the rum, and they controlled a great deal of the populace with that. They really did. Yeah. And they still do. I mean, if they want to make it so that they know it's addictive, they want people to buy it, they promote it in TV, movies, and all kinds of stuff. I don't know. Although one of my streaming services, one of the warnings it puts up there is alcohol.
Well, that was the point. That's the point of the war in Vietnam.
That tax.
One of the points of the war in Vietnam, and one of the points of the war in Afghanistan, the poppy fields. Like, the government is the drug dealer. The CIA, they are the drug dealers. They're the ones who flood. They flood the United States with drugs. You know what I mean? Didn't Pfizer get convicted of something to do with the opioid crisis and epidemic because they were just pushing?
Well, shit, look at the CIA connection to Freeway Rick Ross with the crack, where the CIA was bringing that shit in and hiring these guys on the street to sell the shit and get it out there because it was so addictive. So they could have that there again, keep everybody with a problem. And else you got everybody focused on this new problem,
I just want to point out that it further illustrates when I said the CIA was created not to spy on foreign countries, even though they did that, but it was primarily created to learn how to socially engineer this country and all countries, right? And that's drugs are a major, and alcohol. Drugs and alcohol both are specifically major tools that they use, you know what I mean? Major part of that procedure. They freaking look at I've personally talked to Marines that were over in Afghanistan, and they said that they were over there guarding poppy fields for the government and big pharma. That's what we were doing over there. And so with my generation, the way that went down, even though it's not alcohol, but it's related, it's when I was a kid, like a teenager, like 13, I'm 33. When I was like 13.
33, huh? Illuminati penguins.
Oh, shit, right.
Penguin sympathizer. Bastard.
So when I was a kid, like 13, 14 years old, they were pushing Vicodins and shit out like it was candy. You got a headache? Here's some Vicodin. You know what I mean? That's what I'm serious. Yeah. Well, you got a headache? What, you hit your thumb?
Dude,
with
they
it?
made a whole TV show about this brilliant doctor that was whacked out of his mind on Vicodin all the time. It was called House.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So they, you hit your thumb with a hammer? Here, 1,000 milligram Vicodin. You know what I mean? Getting people fucking hooked on this shit, right? And,
hold up, real quick. This is funny as shit. I'm gonna put this up here and see if it shows up that way. Yeah, look how this shows up in StreamYard. But over in the YouTube side, there's two pink hands that are waving the graphic. But in this, it just says pink hand waving, pink hand waving. Isn't that crazy? I'm sorry. Go ahead. That was rude. My bad.
So, shit. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So they start pushing those things out like they're candy, right? To everybody. So everybody starts taking a shit ton of them. Well, more importantly, the teenagers were getting into their parents' stash, right? And we're witnessing the result of that them flooding the nation with these opioids, and the fact that like my generation, the generation immediately before me, and the generation after me have a serious heroin problem. I've known so many people I never thought would be on heroin, and they're, you know what I mean? You end up hearing, oh, they're doing heroin. And it's because what happens is, and this is usually how heroin addicts become heroin addicts anyways, is that when the market, or when a person starts taking pills, say they get like in a car accident or something, and they've got to get surgery, they get these Vicodins, and they're taking them, and say they're on them for a few months, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever, and then they get, cut down, and then they get cut off. They don't want to quit, so they start buying them on the streets. Well, as their tolerance gets higher and higher, those pills are incredibly expensive. So then somebody comes along and goes, hey, why don't you try this? It's 10 times cheaper and 1,000 times stronger, and bam. They start doing heroin, and that, like, Pfizer was responsible. The pharmaceutical industry is 100% responsible for that. And you're right about alcohol and heroin. They affect the same receptors in the brain. So both of those two drugs, usually what happens to heroin addicts when they quit is they become alcoholics. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you aware there was a study done back in the, I don't know if it was the late 70s, early 80s, but anyways, I remember it was a female pathologist that got onto this. And what they would do is, she was a researcher, and she was still in school. So she did her study on this, and she was studying pathology. Anyway, a lot of the cadavers that they would get to practice on came from like alcoholics, Skid Row drunks and shit like that. These survivors that I spoke of earlier.
Okay.
And people that didn't have anybody left, and they die in an alley, right? Okay. So the city takes their body, and she was using these cadavers and studying them. And what she found was that there was a chemical compound that was built up in their brain that was indicative of heroin abuse. It's got a name about 1.5 miles long, about like Zerzu's in here, about like his name, but worse. So they shortened it down to THQ. I believe that was the chemical thing for it. But anyway, she was like, how are these Skid Row drunks affording heroin? What's happening, Nick? So what she found out is that they studied it, and they found out that when heroin and alcohol break down, they leave a residual chemical in the brain that causes even more and more of a need or a want for the substance. And so there's validity to what you're talking about with that, because they both break down in the system, heroin. And it's ironic that they're both drop D drugs. They're low level vibration highs. And of course, they always cause chaos. They cause misery, sorrow, that kind of thing.
They're both very dark worlds. Yeah,
man, it really is. So I'd like to welcome Nick Volt, Professor
what's up,
at
everyone?
Large. How are you doing today, my friend?
Good. Waiting for the rain.
You're waiting for what?
The rain.
The rain.
Yeah, like all of Southern California is getting pounded by rain, except for where I live.
Oh, well, shit. Well, hang in there. You're liable to get yours too. I saw you guys are getting beat up with fucking earthquakes and flooding and shit I see all over the place. Just a couple of days ago, they had a magnitude 5 or 6 earthquake up there near San Francisco.
Up north. Yep.
Yeah, that's.
We need the rain though. That's why I'm looking forward to it, because here in California we so rarely get rain. It's nice to go to bed with the rain falling.
Yeah, I lived out there for a while, man. It was like when it rained, it was like an oddity. And it only lasts for a little bit, and except during monsoon season. Of course, monsoon season, I've actually seen California 190 get washed out, like gone. The road is just gone. It took the pavement with it, So, and that's the thing out there in California, y'all don't have ditches. Y'all don't have ditches along the side of your roads and shit.
Yeah.
Here in Virginia and other places, they have ditches because you guys ain't used to the rainfall. So when you do get a shitload, it's just, you're screwed, man. There's nowhere for it to go except to the lowest place.
Yeah, I live close to a creek and it's all flooded. But we're not under flood watch here, so that's good.
So what do you think about the topic tonight so far? How you just now found us, or?
Well, I couldn't find your backup channel. Then I said, maybe I should go to your channel and then check the about page, and there was your backup link. I was like,
I put a link under your last comment on Welsh News Networks.
I must have missed it.
Oh, yeah, that's easy to do. YouTube's not the best about giving out notifications about shit, but what we were talking about tonight is basically alcoholism, the adverse things that happen, and on an esoteric level, what alcohol really is. That it is actually imbibing spirits, and this is why it's called spirits. And just like the rule you hear of vampires or demons, and you may have heard it in movies or books, that you cannot be inhabited or possessed by a demon, or it can't come into your home unless you willingly invite it. And as spirit creatures that use this avatar as our home, when you willingly imbibe these spirits, you are offering yourself up to demonic low-level possession. As we were talking there again with the sound and frequency, drop D tuning. So what are your views on that?
Actually, speaking of drop D tuning.
Well, no, actually, we're talking about alcohol.
I know, but I was just like, that's what you're talking about. Was it 432? Yeah, because when I used to play live, I'd always, sometimes do some guitar. I always do drop D tuning. And you're right. It is actually easier to write tracks on that. But
what I'm talking about is like what you do is on a guitar, for instance, you are tuning down to D by dropping the E string down to a D. Okay. Where I'm not talking about I'm not talking about going to A432. At A432, we're going down. It's a different thing. It's a lower level frequency. And we were remarking, if you listen to a lot of the bands like Alice in Chains, some of these people these guys are on heroin, and a lot of them have died from the heroin. And it's ironic that they all play in that drop D tuning. That's what Ryan, this is Burn the Corporate Fiction. I don't know if you've met Professor Nick Volt before or not.
I don't think we met.
I've seen him on your show. We may have been on at the same time at one point. I'm not sure.
Well, how do you do?
So how are you doing, man? Yeah,
pretty good. I used to do music, professionally in LA before I decided to, become a physicist. But yeah, I've seen alcoholism, drugs destroy very talented people. Yeah, okay. But I mean, alcohol is as old as time itself. I mean, humans love to take substances that alter their frame of mind.
But is it just an altered frame of mind? We were just remarking on the fact that, like, have you ever seen a blackout drunk? Have you ever had a blackout?
I have not. I've never done that. Yeah.
Like a blackout drunk. I've had blackouts myself. And, you don't remember anything that you did, but you were apparently conscious and doing these actions, but you have absolutely no recollection of it. And I think it's like what Ryan was talking about, that it's like You have left the incarnation and something else has taken over. And you know, Leanne, my wife, she said that when I was drunk, I had a different look about me. A different look. She said she could just look at me and know that I was drunk, even in like a picture.
Here's the crazy thing, right? And I'm telling you, though, I've seen it in 3 separate people, okay? When they get to that stage of drunkenness, they all have the same, and they're all different ages, you're different genders, and they all have the same look, like it's the same spirit. And that's, well, I'm not going to say them by name, but one of them is actually you, obviously. And then the other 2 are people that I've had close to me in my life that I've had personal experience, and it is the same look, the same attitude, the same everything. Like it is the same entity. It's crazy. Almost like Leviathan, you know, or Legion, you know, that type of thing.
And it is it's a very egocentric behavior that takes place during the drunk, you know, even outside of the blackout. It's a very egocentric, like I was pointing out, you know, oh, are you all right to drive? Yeah, I'll be fine.
Yeah, I
know
10 foot
I'll be fine. Yeah, but what about everybody else out there? You know, that's not where I was going with it. You know what I'm saying?
That's even the start of the possession right there, is because you feel like that's you, but you have this this new sense of boldness and confidence. It's power. You feel powerful. You know, like when I drank, I would feel powerful. I would feel like, you know, and that's the start of it. You think that's you, but it's not. It's something else is hijacking your personality and making you into something that you are not, you know. It's pretty crazy. And I think drop D tuning is probably the best way to describe that experience from both ends, being the drunk and being around the drunks. It's like the entire atmosphere just drops low frequency.
Right. Okay, real quick, for people that listen to music, Rooster. Hey, I've come to snuff the rooster. Down, down, bow, bow, bow. You know, there it is right there. And it's like oh, wow, that's real heavy. It's kind of a down, ooh, you know. And that's exactly where alcohol gets you. I mean, how many times do you ever see the guy pissing and moaning, crying into his fucking glass over a girl or whatever else, you know?
I mean,
that's the best kind of alcohol.
People might get confused and think we're trying to say this is a metaphor. It's not, because everything, all of matter is electromagnetic vibrational frequencies, energy. That's everything.
You know, it's funny. I've had writer's block for like 6 months, and and part of the problem is because I'm happily married. So I told my wife, "Can you just pretend to break up with me so like I can grab a glass of wine and just write solemn artistic music?" Because I mean, the best art comes out of sorrow. It didn't work. But
it does sometimes. But you also, you know, it depends. You can also lull people into that sorrow by playing the music. Or people can already know it to be a sorrowful song and use it to nourish the sorrow they already feel. That's why I always say, you know, that song, it sounds kind of corny, you know, whenever I feel afraid, I whistle a happy tune. There's some validity in that right there. Absolutely. You know? Just think about, like, when I'm going to clean the house or something, I put on electronic music that's got a upbeat to it. There's no lyrics to it or anything like that. And I just let it go, and I just go around and I clean around and I get going, you know? And it's like, you kind of go with your mood. And I joke around a lot of times with Leanne and shit around here. When I'm doing whatever, I'll play like I have theme music to whatever I'm doing. You know, like if I'm sneaking around on her and shit, I'm like, this is my sneaking around music. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. You know, and you know, just to elicit a laugh. But sometimes then I do it for real. I'll have that fucking shit in my head while I'm doing something, you know, whatever music fits the shit, you know.
That's funny. Well, look, I'm gonna get off here. I just wanted to pop on for a little bit and say what's up. I got.
Hey, right on. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Burn the Corporate Fiction. I was going to put your link in here and I never did. I'll let you do it. I'll let you do it because you're popping off here, right?
I can put it. Yeah, I can put it in the.
Because you got a wrench, so it'll show up.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah. So people can go there, burn the corporate fiction. He's starting a channel. He just got enough so he'll be able to go live. He's got a kind of an overview video on there you can look at. He's going to be tell him a little bit about what you're going to be covering, just kind of briefly on that channel.
Oh, like I've been trying to think of what to sum it up as, and essentially law, like the law that's governing the system, what it should be, the history of it, and what it is. And then, of course, I'm going to have evidence directly from authoritative sources like the government's own website, own laws, nothing, from anybody else secondhand to back what I think. But also, we're going to get into the concepts of social engineering, esotericism, psychology, everything, because all of those things are completely and 100% intricately connected to law. Law itself, when you get in outside of natural law, is a form of social engineering. And government is social engineering. It's a business. It's the business of harnessing human resources. That's what that's what nations are. It's the business of harnessing human energy and then doing trade with other businesses called nations. That's what international trade is. But anyways, yeah, we're going to get into a lot of that stuff, and we're going to really, I want to discuss a lot of legalese, because people have to learn this new language. It's completely different than the word we use in common usage. Like, they have a total take consideration, for instance, right? If you know the answer to this, don't answer it correctly. But what would you think consideration? What would you mean? What do you think I mean when I say I ask you for consideration?
To think about your offer, I would say, to consider it. Yeah.
So consideration in law is actually commercial term, and it's a benefit and or detriment experienced as a result of contract. So basically each person has to receive consideration in a contract. So when you go to work for somebody, your consideration for them is your labor. Their consideration for you is your payment. That's consideration. Child, when you're talking about children, if you go read court cases, you'll see the term issue. Issue is child.
Yes.
And somebody's child, you know what I mean? And it's just a whole completely different language, has completely different meanings. We're going to discuss that. So I should be able to go live here in the next day or two. I just have to wait for you to give me your permission, right, to go ahead and see how long it is before I get kicked off here. You know what I mean? So
right. Well, I'd make a backup channel. I didn't make mine till after I saw that thing had come on there, and I was like, what the fuck? All we did was opinionate and use their own shit.
Right.
Things they've already said. So I don't know what the fuck that was. Who cares? What it was a Karen. Went out there. They don't like what I say. See, this is what gets me, is that when people, they get, and this is almost like alcoholic behavior. Like the two guys fighting over what year car something was in a story they're recalling, and they end up fighting to the point where somebody's got a bottle stuck in their neck and shit. And it's like somebody that disagrees with me over my view of the cosmology of the universe, so much so that they want to just exact angry shit on me. Yeah, it's like what the fuck? Either that or try to make a fucking name for their pitiful self, and it's like,
to put you,
why?
Because you don't want to have a certain medical procedure.
Or even whatever. It shouldn't. What the fuck? If you don't like what the fuck I say, hit the little red X and go somewhere.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Sit there and act like little children. Oh, I'm going to go to the overlords at YouTube and I'm going to say something because my butthole hurts.
I'm going to report you. I need an adult.
Yes, I know. That's what's so fucking sad.
Where do you learn that? It's I feel like I'm in kindergarten. I'm telling.
Listen, it comes from the fostering of the idea. All right, burn the corporate fiction. You have a good night. Thanks for coming, buddy. Don't forget to put your link down in the chat.
I will. Thanks, man. All right.
Yeah, it comes from this idea that compliance is a virtue.
Yeah.
that the bowing to authority, regardless how ridiculous, is somehow a virtue and may in fact gain you favor. That's even on the back of the mind too. But most of the time, it's just these butthurt little people that are so scared. And what it comes down to, they're not worried about it actually being medical misinformation or what have you. What they're worried about the most is that they think that if they keep me from saying something, that there's no way it could possibly be true. It's too late. It's already out there. It's already out there. You're already thinking about it. Doesn't matter if you shut me down. It's already out there now. You see? And they worry that because I say something, that it's going to destroy their belief. I mean, just think about this for an instance. Flat Earth is a big one that people get really pissed off about, right? And I don't understand why. I really don't. I don't understand where the anger comes from. It's almost as if what if everybody tomorrow stopped believing in the globe? If it is a globe, would it make it not so? If it really is one and everybody doesn't think it is, does that make it that it isn't anymore? Is it like Tinkerbell and it requires the belief of everyone in order to be true? That's what really
I do have a problem
me.
with people denying basic science. What makes us our entire society is based on science and technology. And
Right.
A lot of smart humans which made this. And it's almost like, okay, so we've given you all this technology so that you can now use it to basically put us back in the dark ages.
Well, no, what doesn't put us back in the dark ages. Actually, I see it as an advancement. For instance, those that have started realizing the real potential of the battery of the earth have actually started creating some really cool things. At MIT, for instance, they have a drone with no moving parts that works merely by changing its electrostatic charge at various portions of the there it is. Where's the gravity? See what I'm saying? They went off of a different premise, and that's what it does. But we're not off on that subject tonight anyways. The thing is that the behavior involved there is almost that of an alcoholic behavior, like the defense of an addiction. It's almost like the defense of an addiction. Like a lot of times I've seen where I have talked to an alcoholic who's really having a rough time. And you start to point out, well, it's this behavior and that behavior right there. No, it's not. It's everybody else. They want to cling on to the false belief that their woes are merely a result of other people's reaction, that they're overreacting or whatever. It's that kind of the same thing to the point of where they'll get angry. And I don't understand the angry. It's like, look, if you think that the cosmology is this way and you don't agree with what I have to say, then go off and do your thing, man. Why do you have to be an angry little child about it? I don't understand that behavior. And I think that the society relies on this mental immaturity of its subjects and exacerbates it through the use of the various opiates, whether it be through the pharmaceutical industry or off the street, and through the social acceptance, and I would dare to say government promotion, because they're making a lot of money off of that, of alcohol, and at the expense of not only the maturity level, but the I would say at the expense of people actually being able to grow, not only spiritually, but intellectually. I think it traps us in a box. So these people lash out, and it's sort of like, look, I don't believe in a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of things that just don't interest me. And I'm sure as hell not going to go over to a site that talks about it and argue with people. Why would I? I don't care.
I think the visceral reaction towards the flat earth is it's and I'll state it. You know my opinion on it. I mean, it's absurd. It's like those people who believe in like numerology, like 1 + 1 is not really 2, and it's like, no, it is. It's not a belief. It, like, for example, people will say, "Do you believe in evolution?" You go, I don't believe it.
But Nick, don't you think that if it were an actual fact that the argument would already be settled by now, though? I have to argue that no, I have to say that the anger, I think the anger doesn't come from we're not going to have science if you don't believe this, and you got a cell phone because I got a cell phone because the Earth's a globe. No, I didn't.
Well,
a lot of times it's easy to conflate actual science, which is not a thing, it's a process. Okay,
it's a philosophy. Science is a philosophy.
Well, it's not. It's a process of finding truth. Okay, it's a process, and it's not a thing. And a lot of times people are, most often people are treating science as though it's a thing and not a process. And therefore this term, trust the science, which is one of the most unscientific goddamn things you could possibly say, because science is always changing. That's hence the nature of its word. So we're easily conflating pseudoscience with actual science.
Well,
when you start using speculations, okay, like taking cause and effect and saying the cause is the effect, and then prescribing this unknown cause onto other objects that you cannot measure, touch, feel, or anything else, is all that's assumptions.
The problem is, and I've been accused of being a condescending intellectual a-hole, which fine, it comes with the territory of being a professor, and forgive me if I go into that right
Nick,
now.
just for a second, and having that you've said that, I'm glad you did, and in keeping with tonight's topic too, I have noticed, and I like you, and if I didn't like you, I wouldn't even have you on my show.
Of course.
But I have noticed that you become more of an asshole the more alcohol you drink.
Probably.
No, there's no probably about it. I guarantee you, anybody who in the chat that's familiar with you will agree that it is. I like this Nick. Much better than I do drunk Nick. Drunk Nick's a fucking asshole. I have to kick drunk Nick off the fucking show.
Well, full disclosure, I had to take tramadol because I have a really bad migraine. So, I mean, I feel kind of loopy right now. That's why I started going to the green store. It's much better to go to the green store and get on live panels, because then, marijuana doesn't make you angry.
No, well, that's what we were talking about, like with the whole compression of the antenna of the DNA, the double helix coil. You tune to a low frequency, and what resides in the low frequency are low vibrational entities that feed off of negative psychic, human, emotional energy. And some of us get really attached to them. Some of us only partially attached, and some never do. And when you're on a higher vibration, a higher frequency, this is the interesting thing. When you drink alcohol, your DNA molecule constricts. When you smoke marijuana, or you're in a love frequency vibration, your DNA will actually relax, allowing for it's a higher frequency emotion. This is measurable. So that's an interesting thing, that what that can do. And like a radio, I mean, where do our thoughts come from? As Renee pointed out, where do our thoughts come from? I don't think they come from our mind. They come from a higher dimension into our mind. We're operating from
like Bob Dylan says,
place.
As musicians, we don't create the music. It's rather that all the songs are already written. Just some people have a talent of being able to capture them and give them to the rest of the world.
And some have actually made a deal with the devil and admitted it on 60 Minutes.
Oh, I totally make a deal with the devil to be a rock star.
Oh shit! Yeah, well, see, there it is, right there.
I take that back. I used to be a rock star. That's
what they rely on. That's what they rely on. This whole system relies on that. There was recently a poll I saw. It involved 1.8 million responses. Okay, that's Not a whole lot, really, considering the population of the world, but it's a good sample. And the question asked was that you could receive $10,000. If you could receive $10,000, but to receive it, you know that one random person in the world is going to die as a result of you getting the $10,000, would you take it?
That's an interesting proposition.
46% of the people polled said they would, never once taking into account that that random person could actually be themselves.
Well, I mean, 1 out of 7 billion is
Well,
pretty
still,
good odds.
but what is that? $10,000 for a person's life, and just because you don't know about them or know of their death, then it's okay. You see, that's where the fucking, you know, immersion into the self is. Because what's $10,000? Sure as hell ain't as much as it was 3 years ago. I can tell you that. You know, I mean, what is it compared to a person's life? And a lot of people don't take that into consideration. They see the money above the human life, and that's really sad.
Well, you know, I'm a bad person because I hate I hate when artists go clean. And let me preface that. So,
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Like, let's take Trent Reznor, our friend Trent Reznor. You know, when he was doing his heroin and angry at the world and this and that, I really liked his music. And then, I'm going to get sober. And then he started working out and this, and it was really boring. Same with Depeche Mode. When Dave Gahan went clean, all the albums sort of went, it's like the passion was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's unhealthy, but...
So let me get this straight. I'm just going to put it in a nutshell then. Without the demonic influence, I'm just going to put it a different way. Without the demonic influence, he was unable to achieve the material wealth that he did under the demonic possession. You see what happened there?
Yeah,
it's the trinkets. It's the trinkets. It's the stuff. It's the money. It's the stuff. You see? And as soon as he started to reject those demons, as soon as he reject that low level, right? As you pointed out, nobody was buying his music anymore. Nobody, you know, that kind of thing. And it was like, he's still the same person. So what happened? He lost the demonic influence and therefore lost the material wealth that went along with that demonic possession.
No. Well, I mean, they're still very wealthy people, but I mean, I don't know anything about demonic possession, but I don't know. At least for me, I think the best art, and this is just my preference, you know, it shows. I like art which shows angst, passion, unrequited love. I mean, call me a romantic, and it tends to come out, like you said. You know, you grab a glass of wine and drown your sorrows about a girl sometime around midnight.
Yeah.
Versus,
well, see, that I can't think of
I'm so
I
happy,
can't think of
my
the
life is great.
Well, you know, no, you wouldn't do that. Of course, you got to go through your stages of mourning and grief and things like that go along with a situation like that. But I can't think of a worse way to do that than to exacerbate it worse with alcohol. And we always look at that as though that would be a remedy. Oh my God, I need a drink. No. You know, I mean, it's like that kind of a thing there. And it's like, whereas if you were to sit back, feel your feelings and go, okay, so this is where I'm at. Where do I go on from here? Whereas if you're sitting there with the alcohol, what do? You sit there and mourn and mourn and mourn, dwell on the past and get more and more deeper into what was and everything. And you start thinking about and the past doesn't even fucking exist in reality. It's only a place in your head. Okay. There's only a perpetual now. So you have to go, you know, without that keeping you down in that low level, you're able to kind of come out of it yourself and say, you know, well, this is where I'm at. Here's what I'm going to go. Here's the good things I have. See, it's the difference between focusing on all the shit you don't have versus on being grateful for the things that you do have. There's a great difference in that, and the results in your whole mental well-being when you think that way is so much better. It really is. You just be grateful for the things you do have, and show and feel that gratitude instead of focused on all the things you don't have, the things that you want to come your way.
No.
You're
Well-
actually saying a prayer to hold those things off when you do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, self-medication is something which humans do. I mean, I do it too. I admit it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I warn my students. I go, look, don't become like me. See, I don't think that I'm really that smart of a guy. I really don't. I just think everybody should know what I know, and it's like, yeah, okay, so I have a degree in physics. Yeah, I know some equations, but no, the world out there is crazy, and yeah, sometimes to cope. It's just like, give me a drink. I just want to get off. Other people do it, which have had childhood trauma. In my family, I've lost both an aunt and an uncle to alcoholism. They were just way too rich and had nothing to do all day other than, drink a bottle of whiskey every night.
Well, I was just a little while ago, I was there in the living room, and all five of my dogs was in there with me, one on the chair, another one on the couch, another one on the dog bed, they're all around me. And I just started looking around, and I started thinking, they're my kids, my kids are grown, and I have grandkids, and you just met my other son. That's who Ryan is, my son. And I just started thinking, I just love you guys so much. I sit here smoking a bowl, and I said, I just love you guys so much. And I just sat there looking at them, feeling like that. And the next thing I know, every one of them was over on my lap, coming up and kissing on me and shit. And it was just like the best damn feeling in the whole world, man. It really was. And they felt that. Because I didn't say a word. I just was thinking, I just really love you guys. And the next thing I know, they felt that. And they came over and wanted to be part more of it. And I started feeling it coming back from them. It was incredible.
Even cats, there's
Yeah.
a reason why. I mean, our relationship with dogs is, part of our evolution. Like, dogs inherently, genetically understand a point.
Yep.
Like, you don't have to teach a dog, go over there. It's just like us humans sort of already know it.
You think it.
Yeah, and they can feel emotions. Like, for example, today I had a headache, and my cat knows when I'm not feeling well. So I was lying down, and he comes and, sits right there and does his purring thing. And I was like, oh.
That's healing. That frequency is a healing frequency. No shit, purring cats. This is why a lot of therapists encourage people to have cats. Yes.
That is interesting. Yeah. And the cats have different frequencies for different times of the day. Like my cat's morning purr is different than like the purr he was doing to make me feel better. I mean, there's some papers on this too.
Yeah. That's they're little furry Royal Rife machines, man.
That's what sort of helped me, especially you come home from a stressful day, or you're like, stop the world, I want to get off. You come home, and then Stan's there, who's just nothing but love, and it sort of makes everything go away. But that's why I want to move to Montana, and so then I don't have to deal with anybody.
You're gonna move to Montana and be a dental floss tycoon?
I just want no neighbors and just leave me alone.
Now, I just know that Articuno was going to comment on that whole thing about going to Montana, going to be a dental floss tycoon. I bet you don't know where that's from, do you, Nick?
I do not.
It's an old Frank Zappa song. Frank Zappa's weird, man. You got to be kind of weird if you listen to Frank Zappa. But yeah, he's got a song about going to move to Montana and be a dental floss tycoon. Yeah, you got to be in the right frame of. I'll tell you what to start with. Listen to Dynamo Hum. That'll interest you. Dynamo Hum. It's a play on words.
My Spotify playlist.
Yeah, you'll like that one. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours here. I'm going to get ready to cut her off here in just a few minutes. But yeah, it's been a great show. Let's see if we can field anything. We got any questions from out in the chat here tonight that we might want to field for a moment? I don't see anything so far. We'll give them a minute though, because I have to keep in mind I'm on a delay when it comes out to the what's actually going out on YouTube versus what we're seeing on here.
Yeah. Well, Art asked a question about submarine communications. He said ELM.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me, my mind is going blank. What do you mean by
ELF or ELF? Maybe he means ELF.
Yeah, ELF, extremely low frequency. Yeah, that's how you communicate with.
Maybe you
someone.
meant instead of frequency modulation, extremely low modulation, ELM.
You know, I've had friends who've done the AA thing. Some of them, and you know, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen them. They become so obsessed with it that it almost becomes its own addiction. Of course, that
They're going to
addiction
cure everybody. Yeah,
has
listen.
less negative effects than, you know, you can't drive impaired on AA.
Well,
I'm high on life.
Exactly. Listen, I'm going to tell you, this is what happened to me, right? I had been over the years, as I'd said before, I'd had a total of 6 DUIs in my life. And of course, with those, they force you to go to AA. And, in some cases, I'd been earnest with it. And then, you know, got to the idea where I thought, oh, well, I got this licked. I can, you know, it's no problem. And then I'd start drinking again, and bam, same thing happened again. So when I finally decided I had to quit, it was over. You know, I was just fucking over, man. I was going to AA, and I was diligent, man. I sometimes had to go twice a day. I mean, I was determined I was not gonna, and I was going like 7 days a week. I was determined I was not gonna drink. And it was doing good. I was doing really good with it. And I was very wary of being that guy that you're talking about, like, I'm going to save the world. I'm like, fuck, I can barely save myself. I'm not out to save anybody else. I barely can save my fucking self, you know? And so I went about a year like that. And my friend and I were growing some magic mushrooms. And this one grew really fast and really strong. It was big. It pushed the lid off the box. This thing was like this tall. And the veil opened. And I know that when that veil rips, that's like when it's the ripest. So I cut it. And my friend says, what are you going to do with that? And I said, I'm going to eat it. And he goes, well, aren't you going to dry it? And I was like, nope, I'm going to cut it up and put it on a salad, and I'm going to eat it.
Uh-oh.
So we weighed it first, and it was close to 100 grams, which would be about 10 grams dry of magic mushrooms. And I ate it on a salad. And a little while later, I was sitting meditating, and I was looking at this plant, and I started focusing on the fractality of things, like how everything is a smaller representation of the greater whole, you know, and how a grain of sand is just like a bigger rock when you look at it close, and a rock is just a whole bunch of those little things. And you look at a mountain, looks like the rock, only far, you know, that the whole fractality. And all of a sudden, Nick, it was like this white, brilliant blankness in my mind just went whoosh like that. And it was like all of a sudden images and thoughts and ideas and knowledge just started fucking crushing into my brain within just a moment. Just within a moment of this, it was just like all kinds of things about the Fibonacci sequence, the 369, the nature of alcohol, everything, like all at once, all this shit, like I tapped into the fucking Library of Alexandria or some kind of shit, man. And it's like boom. And I came out of it and I was like, wow. And it left me stunned. Mm-hmm. And the things that it gave me, answers to questions that I had, questions that I needed to find answers to, all kinds of shit. And things would start laying in my path as I went through life to answer, to right along the path that I was following. It was like laying out breadcrumbs in front of me. But one of the things that it left me with was a natural revulsion, a physical revulsion, along to go with my mental revulsion, but a physical revulsion to alcohol. I can't stand the smell of it. Now, I smoke marijuana, but I clean my glass pipes. I use 90% isopropyl alcohol to clean the resins and shit out of the pipe, right? And I have to put a nose plug. I can't breathe through my nose while I'm doing that. And even just the breaths I take in from my mouth, that fumes of alcohol make me about want to fucking hurl. And I thank for that. And now it's 11 years later, 10 years since that experience, but 11 years I've not had alcohol in my system. And my life has become more, not religious, but spiritual. I realize what my reality actually is, as far as I realize that I am a soul harnessed to an avatar, that this is just my vehicle. This is my home, you see? And that's how I have to view it. And so I look at everything through that perspective of, is that good for my spirit? Is that good for my soul? And like when it comes down to that question about the money, if somebody dies randomly because of you accepting that money, even if you don't know them, no, that's not okay. That's not okay at all.
Yeah, I mean,
That's to me, I mean, that's a dark stain on my spirit. When I do something horrible, if I did something horrible to someone, that's a dark mark on my spirit, and I don't need that. My job here is to try to achieve as much light as I can. I want to gather as much light. I don't want to give it away. I don't want to have it marked up.
have you read those stories about, when we were experimenting with LSD? They actually gave it to a bunch of mathematicians and physicists, and they claimed they were like able to solve these problems. Of course, then the government said, "Oh no, LSD bad." I would be afraid to try any of those because I have a really overactive imagination, and I swear I'm gonna imagine something really bad. Like spiders crawling all over your skin.
Well, see, that's the misconception about it. It's not that you imagine things. What it does is it alters your perception of reality. It doesn't make you hallucinate. It makes you think about things in different ways.
Yeah.
Like, okay, just a rudimentary example. Like, for instance, somebody one time, I was tripping, and he said something about testing makeup. They test makeup on animals.
Yes.
Right?
Disgusting.
Okay. And so immediately, what was the first thing I thought that made me laugh? I pictured a rabbit wearing fucking lipstick and false eyelashes and mascara, and it was just the funniest shit thing I thought. I was just like, oh my God, they're testing. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Put that out on the market. Thanks, rabbit. I'm like, I know that's not what they're doing, of course, but I mean, just to think outside the box that way, or you think of a house sitting there in the dark and somebody turns on the light out inside and the light shines out the window. But wouldn't it be cool, like in the day, you turn the light off and darkness shined out the window? I mean, of course, it's an absurd thought, but that's the kind of thing that you're able to explore outside the box ideas that normally wouldn't occur to you, that kind of a thing. And so consequently, you get a deeper thought. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but Harvard University, within the last few years, I read they had done a study and found that psilocybin mushrooms actually grow brain cells.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to have a big
legal.
I should have a fucking massive brain by now, man, because
was it Colorado which made mushrooms legal? I know they're trying to do it here in California.
Entropics, yeah. And then that brings us right back into like with DMT. That's
I don't know.
Basically DMT, dimethyltryptamine. It's a substance found in all living things, and some concentrations are higher in other things than others. It's usually found in it's almost like the same compound that's found in the mescaline cactus, within the ayahuasca plant in particular, a high amount of it. But there's an interesting thing. You have a bunch of it in your body right now. It's in play when you have your dreams. But if you try to get a hold of some and you go, oh, cool, I'm going to eat this, right? Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. You have to have an MEOI inhibitor to block an enzyme that you have that prevents you from being able to trip on DMT orally. Okay. So what ayahuasca does, it's a mixture of this, of the ayahuasca plant, but they make a brew and they add to it this one particular vine that happens to have the right MEOI inhibitor in it. And when you drink it orally, it allows the DMT to take effect on you. And you have a very, very long trip because of that. Most times DMT is smoked or vaped. I have a vape, and it's usually only lasts about 15 or 20 minutes. But the thing about it is that there's so much in that period of time, and you're unaware of that time. And after it's over, it's just like no residual effects. It's really something else. It's been called the spirit molecule. I think it's really an interesting substance. I've gotten a lot of insight from it. But there again, it's a lot of people, they think, oh, these people are just doing that to get high. I don't know. I found it to be tools. I found it to be tools of learning, not just the academic things, but spiritual matters as well. Things about life, things about nature. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, some mind altering stuff, like, just recently this year, I was never into marijuana or anything like that, but, it's legal here in California. And so I dabbled with it, and it found out to be very therapeutic. Mm-hmm. And some of my best music, because my friend told me, he's like, oh, you should try it like this. Like, I get so frustrated. It's like, I think I know what the chord progression is supposed to be. Like, I hear it in my head, but then my brain is not able to transmit it down to my, to actually perform the chords with a little bit of THC. Like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it like removes that sort of mental block. It makes it a little easier. When I was performing, I had a strict rule with my musicians. It's like no drinking on stage. But even now, like, I'm probably going to do it for some of my first lectures, just a small shot of whiskey, just because, it helps with the stage fright. Sort of makes you a little bit more comfortable.
Makes you bolder. Yeah, it's liquid courage. Ryan addressed that earlier too. That's another thing that it does too. Like, that's one of the traps that it uses on those. Now, not everybody gets affected the same way. Not everybody becomes an alcoholic. But that's one of the traps of it too. It's like, hey, this shit gives me superpowers, man. I ain't afraid to talk to girls. That guy that mouthed off to me, I mouthed right the fuck back to him, bro. Look at that. This shit, I'm good. I'm going to take me a shot of courage before I have to go confront so-and-so or whatever. And that's the trap. And then pretty soon you're like, yeah, I'll even get some more superpowers. Watch this shit,
Humans have been using alcohol for 15,000 years to do that. I think beer was one of the first.
Beer was actually kind of a way that they were using to have a preserved, sterile drinking source. The Mayflower landed where it did because they ran out of beer.
I have not heard that story.
Yeah, they'd run out of beer, and that's what ended up making them land at Plymouth. They went ashore, they had to make beer. Because it wasn't used, of course, it wasn't as strong. If it sat long enough, of course, it would get stronger and stronger and stronger. But it was basically the same thing as like using fermented wine. But this was a way to use something that was more readily available, like grains or oats, things like that. So that's pineal gland produces DMT. That's correct, Art. That is correct. That was the one that we were talking about, Nick, the third eye, the pineal gland. That mysterious thing in the middle of your brain that actually has rods and cones like your other two eyes. It's an interesting thing. It really is. And that's another thing they try like hell to calcify and deactivate through the use of the fluoride in the water, other pharmaceuticals, things that they're putting in the air, aluminum. These are all things that disrupt that. It's not just a part of the endocrine system. A lot of great people throughout history and even today, scientists, there's a lot of scientists that believe that is actually the seat of the soul. That is actually like your Wi-Fi, if you will, your Wi-Fi to the higher dimensions. And this is exactly how it lines right up with the whole activation of the crown chakra, which is, I took the express lane in my meditation with the mushroom to activate that crown chakra. That is what it is.
Chakras, that's all Indian mysticism.
No, it's not actually. It's actually not. It's not. I mean, you can actually feel these energy points activate and become resonant as you go through your meditation process, especially when I go through a chakra alignment meditation. I mean, you can literally feel it.
Sovereign, do you have my email address?
No, I don't. Put it over in the private chat.
Yeah, can you post it for anybody
sure.
who needs it, but Jeebus wants it for sure.
Okay.
I didn't realize how educated Austin was. Apparently he has 4 PhDs.
Piled high and deep.
There you go.
All right, let's see.
Yeah, I'm terrible with text messages, so email is the best way to get a hold of me. Or Discord. Sovereign, why don't you have a Discord page?
Because
Stick with the times.
I hate Discord. Discord is an electronic trailer park.
Well, some channels are like a trailer park.
You know, I ain't got time to keep up with that shit. You know, I mean, you know, I got comment section here. I have my email listed. You know, some of my people have my phone number. You know, not everybody, but you know, there's enough people that they, you know, there's ways to get a hold of me and shit without all that. You know, and if you want to network and coordinate through here, that's all cool and everything, but no, I'm not gonna have that hassle of that Discord shit. And it's just
I use Discord to talk to my students. It actually worked out pretty nicely.
Yeah, no, I'm not wanting to have that. I feel like it's something that I'd have to fuck with a lot, and I just don't really want to. I mean, it's enough now that I got 2 channels to keep track of on YouTube. I got a Rumble channel. I'm getting ready to launch my BitChute channel. You know, I already got a lot of stuff going on the plate that I don't want to be dicking around in that too much, because I see Facebook, or I see YouTube getting worse and worse with the trailer park people.
Oh, God, YouTube has become such a cesspool.
It really has. You know, people trying to make a name for themselves, you know, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, some of the shit that people will do to go to, oh, he said this about that, you know, and it's because they're fully vested in their belief system that they want to shut somebody else up because of what somebody else says. Things that I say scare the fucking bejesus out of people. And people say, God, I don't want that to be true. It could be true. Shut him up. Then if he doesn't talk, it's not true. It's the same thing, the same idea that, oh, if everybody else doesn't believe in this globe, then it's not going to be one anymore or something. And instead of just going, whatever the fuck, you know, think your thing, whatever, you know, people can't do that. So you got some people that are real assholes in this YouTube
somebody tried
community.
to win an argument with me. They're like, oh my God, you've been on YouTube since 2017 and you only have 100 subscribers. Like, you know, I get it that YouTube is sort of the benchmark about how cool you are. I'm not a content creator.
Yeah, I'm not. That's look. There was a thing on Welsh News Network. You were on there, right? And
yeah,
where they were talking about, you know, people, where Chili had made the claim that people used his content to make their channel. And I put in the comments, I said, I totally used his shit to build my channel up. Absolutely. I wanted to get a reach out there so I could start talking about the shit that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And if the gossip hens want to not come, then don't come. If their only interest was Chili, then that's fine. Don't come anymore. I don't care.
I 100% agree with Chili. You know, he's very good at raising money. Chili has made some people on YouTube very wealthy people. I mean, relatively. I mean, they make a lot of money reporting in Chili. I guess if I were a content creator, yeah, I'd start with Chili.
Listen, I can make a hell of
asshole, Team Skeptic, Irish Demon.
I could make a hell of a lot more money working part-time up at fucking Sheets. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not like worried. It's not about that to me. I want to look, I could have 40 people in my chat. If I reach one, I've done exactly what I set out to do. Because you see, they took my other channels down because of a strike, right? All right. So I'm not making no money on that channel while I'm down. This is what a Karen does. Well, take away your. Listen,
I'm telling.
Yes. Well, I'm pretty glad that most of those self-righteous Karens won't be with us 5 years from now. So that's good. That's
well,
good.
It's the same thing. I mean, I was around when there was MySpace, and we evaluated how popular we are based on how many MySpace friends we have. Then it became Facebook. I mean, for a while, I thought I was king of the world. I have 6,000 friends on Facebook, but now Facebook is totally irrelevant. So,
listen, I'm the guy that when I get a friend request on Facebook, I'm like, I don't know that motherfucker. I just reject it. I don't want a bunch of friends and shit on there. I don't. The thing is, like here, it's like if I'll run across somebody, and if we've had a conversation and we're like-minded and shit and that kind of thing, or we end up having good conversations, whatever, I'll add you. Yeah, that's cool. But these people that just want to collect friends or collect subscribers just because it's a number, that's what Chili does. Chili goes and buys subscribers. They're bots. He doesn't have 50,000 subscribers, really.
No, he doesn't.
Okay, that's why he has less than 1% of his view count.
Most of the people don't. It's always just the same core group of people. I mean, I subscribe to a lot of channels, and probably 75% of the channels I'm subscribed to, I never watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I look and they come through my feed. There's a few that I watch pretty diligently, and based on the fact that I do that, the algorithm puts them up there a lot more for me. But no, that's what I say, so I'm over here right now. I'm putting in the time and I'm talking. And my whole idea tonight was I wanted to talk about the esoteric aspect of alcoholism and let people know that, if they've got that problem, they're not alone. And definitely to look at it from a spiritual aspect too, at least consider the information. And hopefully if that helps one person, that in turn keeps them from feeding. It keeps the demons from feeding on 20 more, because that's how far the reach of that can go just from one alcoholic. It's bad. And people don't really realize it. And even the drunk only thinks everything concerns him, the trouble he's got into, the job that he lost, the wreck that he wrecked his car. He doesn't look into the fact that he damaged somebody else's car. It's really,
well, that's our society.
It is. Yeah. It's an ego-driven commercial society. Absolutely. 100%. And that's the inverted pentagram, where you have the 4 elements of earth, fire, air, and water above the 5th element of spirit. You need to invert. You need to stop the inversion of your pentagram. Turn your spirit above those things. You have to ask yourself those things. What is more important? I mean, I'm using that in a reference that, people can understand. And I hope that this show tonight helped at least one person. I really do. And, the alcoholic is very selfish just because it's an immersion into the ego. It absolutely is. It's
especially when they drive.
It's absolutely a detachment from the spirit. It is. At the expense of the spirit, really, because your actual spirit's taking a vacation while somebody else is fucking running the controls, and you're doing shit that you wouldn't do without having drank. You're saying things that you wouldn't have said. It's not you. You're being puppeteered. Your higher self is taking a vacation in lieu of letting these guys fuck with you and do things that are going to cause bad things into your life. Yeah. Not to mention the health risks that go along with it as well, but that's another story. I'm not one to talk on health risks.
My problem with people who drink is when they drive. Like, I'll be driving home. I get really frustrated because it's like, look, if you want to drive drunk and put your life at danger, that's fine. But I have to share the road with you. I want to get home.
Well, then you've got the drunk that the wife accidentally burned dinner and he beats the shit out of her. Or the drunk whose kid came home with an F and he beats the fuck out of him for getting an F. Or the neighbor who's out there raking his lawn and the sound's irritating the drunk because it's Sunday morning and he's hungover and he goes over and beats the guy's ass. You see what I'm saying? It's like this thing it's just a volatile, terrible drug that a lot of people, listen, I'll tell you, most people that are in jail, most people that are in prison for violent crimes alcohol was either directly or indirectly related in their crimes. This is for
absolutely.
real. And yet the government rakes in a heavy duty fucking profit through taxes, through the sale of this. And here in Virginia, our liquor stores are state run.
I know. When I lived in Virginia, I was shocked by that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Communist?
The ABC store, yeah. So they're the ones ordering it from Seagram's, stocking it, pricing it up, putting the profit margin on it, and reaping it all. Yeah. Not just, they're reaping the profit and the tax.
Is it only hard liquor? Because I remember, at the lab.
Yeah, it's only hard liquor. Beer and wine can be purchased in the grocery store, convenience stores and shit. Yeah.
When I was in Virginia, there's a gas station. This was in Williamsburg, and I'd always get beer from there. I don't usually drink hard liquor, so that's probably why I didn't go to a lot of those stores. But like, for example, on New Year's, I never drink on New Year's. Only to annoy my neighbors. Like this New Year's, just, I got up in the morning, started mowing the lawn at 7 a.m. I'm like, what? I want to start the new year, not hungover, but ready to go and conquer the world. Well, of course, a few months later,
we have these little,
and then I'm just like,
isn't it amazing how many of our reset points are alcohol related? For instance, in the weekly reset, we have Friday. For most people, it's Friday. Go out after work, hanging out at the club, whatever the case, right? Just got paid. And on the monthly reset, we've got each one of the holidays. We got St. Patrick's Day, not so much Easter, but a lot of the other ones. Christmas, people get drunk. New Year's, people get drunk. Halloween, people get drunk. We have these like yearly little marker points, these monthly marker points that people drink at. And it seems that each one of these reset points that we do daily, monthly, weekly, yearly, it's part of that mind trap, and they exacerbate it, I think, even more. There again with the sports. What do guys do when they get around to watch the game and drink some brewskis? Gonna drink some brewskis, bread and circus. I
never drink at concerts because I find like I want to remember everything about the performance. Because I did try marijuana at a show, and that was kind of fun. Mm-hmm. I saw Kraftwerk after taking a couple of edibles, and I was just having the time of my life and just cool. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, alcohol. I mean, all the arguments you're making is, why this country decided, we're going to make alcohol illegal. And that obviously didn't work out so well. But
outside of Middle Eastern countries, I think that just about everywhere else in the world, it's legal and they sell it freely. I mean, it's the Muslims. Listen, we've been taught to hate those people, but they're pretty fucking based. When it comes to that shit, these people that they're talking about are Muslim terrorists. Those people are way off base of what Islam really is. They are really far off base when it comes down to it. I mean, one of the reasons that the Iranians, during the revolution in what was it, 79, why did they attack and keep the American embassy and not anybody else? Was because we were responsible for a lot of the decadence that was occurring in their country. Well, not just through the Shah, the Western influence. There was, I think at the time of that revolution, 1 out of every 3 movie theaters in Tehran was a XXX porno theater. There was prostitution, narcotics, all kinds of shit rampant in the streets. And they were like, this is all shit from the West. We need this gone. We need this gone now. And so like a rubber band, it slung back. And that was why we demonized them.
Iran's youth, I mean, it's a young, the problem is all of these countries all around the world are like, American decadence. It's sort of ironic, though. They all sort of want what we have.
Well, because it's the sparklies. It's the sparklies. Listen, it's easy to get people put into the sparklies, but we're seeing a thing right now, hopefully, in this nation, amongst our young people. And I'm not talking about the dipshits you see on TikTok and those people, but I've talked to a lot of very intelligent young people that have come to the idea of where we're at, what the problem actually is, and how we should remedy that. you know, and it's very refreshing to see. It's very refreshing to see, to get away from this programming that's given to us. Question your reality. Like Christos said in the or Christopher, or whatever his name was, in the Truman Show. He was asked, why do you think Truman has never questioned, you know, what's going on? And he says, because we accept the reality that we're presented with.
I've never seen that movie. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It really is. It's an eye opener. It's an eye opener. It's funny too. It's funny too. But I mean, you look at it on a deeper level. Tell you another good one to see too. It's with Ryan Reynolds. It's a recent movie. It's called Free Guy.
That one I saw. That one's good.
Did that make you think though, don't it? It make you think. It's like, whoa, hold up a second. And you can see the whole metaphor of what happened there. Because who was controlling the original creation was this basically Satan character, right? The guy with the tennis shoes that was the egotistical, right? He was the Satan character. He had hijacked the creation and turned it into this violent, terrible fucking place, right? And there was nothing that the creators could actually do about it except to show the characters in the game where the real created game was actually at. So you see what that whole thing was just like, when you realize that our world, not the earth, our world is under the control of the shaitan, dark powers and principalities. We fight not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. And it was kind of a metaphor for that, is the way I see that I looked at it. And we can actually see that is evident in our world right now. And what is it? And it's a lulling of the people into this earthly ego and I don't mean ego like I'm stuck on myself. I mean the immersion into the earthly self at the expense of the soul, at the expense of the higher self. The idea that a person's status is derived from the amount of trinkets he has, or how big his domicile is, or how many girlfriends he has, or whatever, these material things that don't matter one bit. Because when it's all said and done, when you go from here, all that shit just goes into the box. It wasn't yours to begin with. You got to play with it for a little while, and you let it distract you from what was important. So that's something we got to understand, is that we should be important to one another and not put these things, money, ahead of that. And this is my problem, like with police. You're willing to do some of the things that they tell you to do merely because if you don't, you won't have a paycheck.
Yeah.
And you've put your core values, you put money ahead of your core values. You've put money ahead of morality, which means you've put your money ahead of God's internal law.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole concept of money, and again, I'm not a communist or anything like that. It's very interesting because we believe that money is scarce, and because it's scarce, we all have to fight for it. But I mean, our economy is so strong that we could just give our citizens money. Just give them money.
Sure. Well, it's artificial scarcity. You know, the thing is this: there's enough shit in the world right now that anybody could have anything they want. They really could. But the problem is then when you tell people that, they go, well, I want a 50-foot yacht. I want 2 50-foot yachts. And it's like, well, wait a second. Okay, you can have them, but what good are they to you if you don't know how to sail one? You can only use one at a time to begin with. You don't, if you want to, maintain it and all that other shit, it's not a status symbol anymore because everybody could have that if they want. So once you take away the idea that some people can have something and other people can't, all that goes away. The idea of greed goes away. Well, I want 50 yachts. Well, go ahead, have 50 yachts. Who cares?
Oh yeah, my parents, not anymore, but growing up, I mean, they were Reagan Republicans. It's always, I have to be, what do they call it? Keeping up with the Joneses. I finally came to the conclusion that no matter how much I have, somebody's going to have more. And somebody's going to have less. And that's why I just want to move to Wyoming. I'm like, just give me a house, and just let me do my thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna
Canada is always afraid to use the military.
listen, no offense to Epiphanies
I'm just joking.
and Devos Nation. They're two of my Canadian friends, but I used to joke all the time. It's like, Mr. President, Canada's attacking. Yeah, who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So any last words on alcohol? I'm going to shut her down here. I'm coming up on 2.5
No, other than speaking of which, when you just, it's not about views and stuff like that. You should all check out Drinks and Discussion, if you don't mind me promoting. Like, there are usually only 7 people watching, but we really have good discussions on there.
All right. Well, we'll look that up. If you want to post that link in the comment section of this after it uploads, it should upload right away.
Yeah.
Feel absolutely free to. I want to say goodnight. Thanks for coming, Nick.
Yes, I'll see you next time.
Right on, brother. Have a good one. So, I also want to say goodnight to all my participants in the show tonight. We still got Renee Bernays, Rebecca Joe, Epiphanies, and of course, Austin Murphy. So, I want to tell y'all it's been a great having you here. Like, share, subscribe to this channel. Please share this video if you think that the discussion may help somebody that you know. It's some good information. If you or someone you know is suffering from alcoholism or any other kind of addiction like that, try to be as understanding as possible, but don't enable it. And see if you can help them out a little bit, because that's what it's all about. So remember, your mind's like a parachute. It only works if it's open. Good night. Y'all have a good one.